Today we will be discussing daily current affairs of 27th of October 2022. So let's start with the first news of the day. The first news is about the scheduled summit called Religion Forum, the G20 Religion Forum, a first of its kind to be hosted by Indonesia. We know that India is going to assume G20 presidentship from December onwards, and currently the presidentship is with Indonesia. And the summit, the G20 Religion Forum summit, is scheduled to be November 2 and 3rd of 2022 in Bali, Indonesia. Basically, it is a parallel event to the annual G20 summit that will be hosted, that Indonesia hosts for the year 2022. And now we have to understand that what exactly this G20 Religion Forum is. It will be organized by Nahdlatul Ulama, which is Indonesia's most influential Islamic think tank. And this religion forum, this G20 Religion Forum, basically it is to facilitate the harmonious relationships between different religious groups. It is to widen the reconciliation, the brotherhood and peace among different communities belonging to different religions. And the important aspect of this G20 Religion Forum will be the four major topics that will be the main focus. First is the historic grievances, the truth telling and the reconciliation and forgiveness. Now basically the first pillar of this G20 Religion Forum will be the historic grievances, to address the historic grievances. Now we know that religion, sometimes it may become a contentious issue between two different communities having different fundamental belief and fundamental practices. Maybe the essence, not maybe, but generally, the essence of all religious practices and all religious preaching basically is to have an amicable relationship between different communities, is to promote the brotherhood. But however, sometimes because of the narrow interpretation of the religion and the narrow interpretation of certain religion scriptures leads to enmity between different religion, which has historically led to wrongs committed by one religious community against the other religious community. Therefore, the first pillar of the G20 Religion Forum will be to address the historic grievances, to reconcile the differences and to forgive each other. The second pillar of the G20 Religion Forum will be to embrace the shared values. Now, like I said, that all religion basically in their essence preaches similar values. The G20 Religion Forum will be to embrace those shared values and shared culture which are propagated and preached by different religion, and not just the religion but also the civilization. The third pillar of the G20 Religion Forum will be recontextualization of the obsolete and problematic teachings. Now, what does this mean? What happens, when a particular religion is found, it has a certain context. So therefore, the teachings and the practices are within that context. They may be for the future also. They are particularly for the communities who believe in them, believe in that religion, and believe in the scriptures belonging to the religion. However, with the time, those practices becomes obsolete, or you can say that those practices have, they certainly are not, they may not be considered completely wrong, but the importance declines, or the significance with the progression it declines. Therefore, in order to recontextualize those preachings and those teachings, so as to have a brotherhood, so as to have more better understanding amongst the communities, so as to have a better understanding within the community, within the religious communities as well. The fourth and the final pillar of the G20 Religion Forum will be the values which the people around the world need to develop, and that which will ensure the peaceful coexistence of different religious communities. We know that religion has been a major reason for the ethnic persecution, and particularly the religious persecution of different communities. We have seen the horrific partition of India 1947, the communal riots, the escape, or you can say the escape by the Rohingya Muslims from Myanmar. These are all incidents which tells the Bosnia and Herzegovina incident in 1990s. So these are all the incidents, which talks about that how religion can become such an issue, such a bigger issue among the people who believe in it, that it may also lead to ethnic cleansing or persecution of the people on the basis of their religion. Therefore, it is important to embrace the shared values. It is important to develop certain values which are needed to ensure the peaceful coexistence of the people and to uphold the humanity, right? So now let us move on to the second news. India has been making advances when it comes to the space mission, when it comes to building telescope, and also when it comes to venturing into the new fields of space, exospace, and several missions are in the pipeline. For example, Chandrayaan 3 mission is there. We have recently successfully test launched the GSLV Mark 3, which is also known as the LVM3. LVM3 rocket. So in that particular context only, I would discuss one important incident here, that recently the Uttarakhand Chief Minister has commemorated the 50 years of successful operation of the Sampurnanand Telescope. Now this Sampurnanand Telescope, it is located of course in Uttarakhand, and it is basically a world-class telescope which is located near Nainital. Now there is one more telescope located in Uttarakhand, and you have to see that too. All right, and there is one observatory also which is located in Lahore and Spiti. Right. So we will talk about. So you need to find that. All right, I will be discussing only the Sampurnan telescope here. It is located at the Manora Park, which was established by the Aries. All right, and it is also known as the UP State Observatory in the 1972. It was established in the year 1972. Basically, the observatory, the Sampurnanand Telescope, which is 104. So basically, this has been extensively used for as optical observatory to observe the comets, asteroids, the star forming regions, the star clusters, the variable stars transient, the active galactic nuclei, etc. It's a 104-meter telescope. What does this 104-meter telescope means? Now, if I am to draw a very rough sketch of a telescope, the basic telescope would look something like this. This is the eyepiece from where we can watch, and this is basically the lens. So lens is like this. The aperture of this lens, what is the aperture of this lens? The diameter of this aperture is basically 104 meter. That is the reason why it is also known as 104-meter telescope. So it is to observe observe the comets, asteroids, and other star and active galactic nuclei, etc., etc. The major breakthrough contribution of this was the discovery of the new rings around the Saturn and the rings of Uranus. Now this point is very important because this is the major discovery by this telescope, and the instrumentation and science capabilities of Sampurnanand Telescope, they have paved the way for setting up of the national and international facilities by Aries, such as 3.6 centimeter dot and 4 meter international liquid mirror telescope at Devasthal. All right, so you have to note down all the telescope and all the observatory facilities which are located in India and how India has been endeavoring for the general studies paper 3. For the general studies paper 3, application of science and technology. So in that you can prepare this topic. The third news is about the National Credit Framework for Public Consultation has been launched by the Ministry of Education and the Minister of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. Now we will be talking about what this National Credit Framework for National Credit Framework means. Now basically, the National Education Policy, which was launched in the year 2020, and also there has been talks going on around the country about the linkage between the academy and the industry, and national education policy talks about two very important aspects. The first thing that it talks about is the multidisciplinary approach. Basically it allows a student to study multiple discipline at the same time. The national education policies, the framework and the rules and regulation are yet to be completely and holistically drafted and formed. However, the overall idea that national education policy has is about the multidisciplinary approach. And the second important thing that the national education policy talked about was the linkage between the academy and the industry. Now, let me take example of Japan here. Japan was able to successfully industrialize itself post World War II disaster of Hiroshima and Nagasaki because of this very important aspect of academy and industry linkage. It designed the curriculum of its schools in such a way so as to cater to the needs of the industry. So basically, the human resource development was in accordance with the need of the industry. So there was a linkage established between what has been taught in the schools and colleges, and what was the demand of the industries and what was needed by the industry. So basically, National Education Policy 2022 also talks about it. So in this context, this National Credit Framework has been launched for the draft has been put into the public domain for the public consultation. And now we will see the major points of this credit framework and how it is going to establish this linkage. Basically, the draft is going to enable the integration, ensure the flexibility and mobility between the two. That means the academy and the vocational domain. Vocation means some profession, some job and all. It aims to basically unify the credit accumulation and transfer for general and vocational studies from school to higher education. It is basically a credit. It will be a kind of a credit accumulation system, like whatever that you learned and you get certain credit for that. So that those credit will be it will be carried on. And that will become your profile then. Like I said, that it has been launched as part of the implementation of the national education policies, which advocated for the multidisciplinary studies. Basically, if it is operationalized, the national credit framework, then there will be academic bank of credit. Like you do a course, you complete it, and you are given certain credit. Those credit will be accumulated in your credit bank, and that credit bank will then be part of your profile, and it will enrich your experience, and it will also enhance your opportunities, your vocational opportunities, your opportunities in the different professions. So this is what the credit framework is meant for, and as it was advocated by the national education policy. The Aadhaar will of course be used for registering the students, and each candidate will then be assigned an academic bank account number where their degrees and their credit will be accumulated for the further usage. Now let's talk about what are the possible benefits that a candidate can have when it comes to the national credit framework. First, let's talk about with respect to the student, then we will talk about with respect to the government, and then the industry. So first, the student. Now if credit is accumulated, and we do have this multidisciplinary approach, it means that the students will have the flexibility. The student will have the flexibility to for multiple entry and the exit options. So therefore, it will pave the path for the creditization of all the learning hours. Like nothing will go to waste. You are doing a certain diploma from some institute, you are doing some degree courses from some institute, and all those credit and scores will be accumulated in your academic bank credit account, and where they can be utilized for the purpose of vocation and for further studies also. It has the provision for anytime and anywhere learning. It doesn't mean where you are. All your credit will go into your credit bank account. What is the benefit for the institutions? Basically, if we have a multidisciplinary approach, that means the institutions will be unified. There will be no segregation among the streams, like commerce streams is different, science stream is different, arts stream is different. It will have certain interdisciplinary approach, and therefore it will lead to the unification of the higher education institutions, and this will allow and this will enable the nation to have a rich human resource, and also the rich student knowledge base. What are the benefits that the government is going to derive from the national credit framework? The first important aspect is that it is going to increase the student enrollment. Now, what happens generally after seeing such segregation and differentiation in the hectic and the cumbersome process of admission, studies, curriculum, etc., etc., many of the students they drop out, and many of the students drop out from the work also, and some of the students they drop out from their studies. So if we are going to have such credit framework, if we are going to have a multidisciplinary approach, the gross enrollment ratio will automatically increase. Therefore, India will be transformed into the skill capital. And if we do consider the short window of the demographic dividend that we are to have, then we have to encash before 2040s, then enhancing the level of the skill of the people, reskilling and upgrading their skill, and also enhancing the knowledge and the resource base, the human resource base of our country, national credit framework will be a step in progress. The benefit that the industry is going to have, basically the industries will have more employable people, more skilled people, and therefore industrial productivity will increase, and thus the economy. The micro credential will allow the integration of the quick educational upgradation and upskilling. So this was all about the national credit framework. Now we will move on to the next news of the day, that is the Union government has announced a month-long program which is named Kashi Tamil Sangamam. Now basically Tamil, if we consider Tamil Nadu and if we consider Kashi, which is in Uttar Pradesh, then both have rich heritage. Both are the civilizational. I mean, both are the learning centers of the civilization, and ancient civilization, or we call the modern civilization. So they, in fact, in ancient times, Kashi and Tamil Nadu, for example, the Kanchipuram, and they all have been major learning centers. Now the point is that this Kashi and Tamil Sangamam, basically it is going to reconnect the two civilization centers, the two learning centers. It is going to revive the civilizational link between the Kashi and the Tamil Nadu, and it will be part of the Ek Bharat Shresth Bharat program that is going to be held from 16th of November to 16th of December, the year 2022. Now, as part of this program, what will happen? Some 2,500 people will participate, which coming from different backgrounds like artisans, lecturers, and etc., etc., those who are going to visit the Kashi Vishwanath temple and the Tamil cultural center in Varanasi. Now what will happen, these 2,500 people are going to be divided into 12 groups, and each of these group are going to visit the different places which marks the point of learning in Kashi, and also the civilization and the cultural centers that that kind of depict the Tamil culture. And the knowledge partners are the IIT Madras and Banaras Hindu University, Uttar Pradesh being the host state. Now let's talk about the next news is about that Maharashtra government has basically has restored the general consent to the CBI. Now we know that CBI is the Central Investigation Agency in India. All right. Now what is this general consent? This is the first point that we will discuss, and we will see a little bit about the CBI. The first thing is that CBI is basically governed by the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act of 1946, and CBI has to obtain mandatory consent from the state. Now why is it so? We in India, we have federalism. The states are not the organs of the center. They are not the organs of the union government. Rather, they are the autonomous units. They are the autonomous governing units. So because of this federalism, the center and the union, unless and until as per the provision of the constitution, cannot force their decision on the state, the state should equally participate in the decision making. That is the reason why we have Rajya Sabha, and CBI being the Central Bureau of Investigation, the central investigation agency, therefore should and has to mandatorily take permission from the state if it wants to enter the premises of state and conducts the investigation. So there are two kinds of consent which are taken by the CBI from the state. The first is the general consent, and the second is the specific consent. General consent, if a state gives the general consent to CBI, that means the CBI can at any time come and investigate the cases, and then it can, it can also call for the evidences, it can call for the records and etc. Everything that is needed for the purpose of the investigation, CBI can perform that. But when it comes to the specific consent, basically the CBI needs to take case-wise consent from the concerned state. So this is what is meant by the specific consent. Section 6 of the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act of 1946 talks about that the state as an autonomous governing unit has the powers and the jurisdiction, and therefore the CBI has to take consent of the state government. Now, when we compare Central Investigation Agency and with the national NIA, which is the National Investigation Agency, there is a difference that NIA functions all over India and it does not need any consent from the state government. And NIA, specifically after the Amendment Act of 2019, it has in fact been empowered, in fact been more empowered, and it can conduct research with respect, investigation with respect to the cases of the terrorism and etc. and national security all over India. But CBI has to take the consent, unlike NIA. Now let's talk a little about the Central Bureau of Investigation. The first and the foremost thing that it comes under the Ministry of Personal Public Grievances and Pension. It was established by the Ministry of Home Affairs resolution in the year 1963 after the recommendation of the Sangamam Committee. It derives its power from the mentioned act, and also it is the main investigation agency. It also assists the CVC, which is the Central Vigilance Commission, when it comes to the cases of fraud, money laundering and corruption in the public institution or by the public officers. And also CBI coordinates with the Interpol, which is the international police, and it is the, you can say it is the nodal agency of Interpol in India. All right. Now the next news of the day is about the place in news. The place in news was the Groningen natural gas field. Now this Groningen natural gas field is located in the Netherlands. Why? And it is the largest gas field of Europe. Now why this was in news? Now recently, after several protests by the local people, Netherlands government has decided to shut down the natural gas field by the year 2023. So now what happened? Why the Netherlands government decided to shut down the natural gas field? And before it shut down, it is going to increase the production of the natural gas. Now the reason is that this particular region, the Groningen region, is particularly susceptible to several earthquakes, and a major earthquake is going to lead to a devastating disaster. All right, so that is the reason why after several local protests, the government of Netherlands has decided to first decided to shut it down, and until it is shut down by the year 2023, the natural gas production is going to be increased, and it is the largest natural gas field in the Europe. All right. So that's it for today. Have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching Tarun IAS.